You're listening to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we share the secrets of field support that are unlocking hidden profitability in progressive franchise brands across North America. Today, I'm joined by Thomas Scott, founder of Home Run Franchises, who's built not just a powerhouse of a brand portfolio, but a support system that actually keeps franchisees happy, growing, and sticking around long term. Thomas, your franchise business review scores are lighting up the charts, but what really stands out is how intentional you've been about evolving your field support to get there. So before we dig in, I just want to say how much I admire how you've built your team and your culture from the inside out, and you've made some bold moves to do what's right for the brand and the people in it. So let's dig in. Thomas, let's start with your background. If you can give the audience that's listening a little bit of your
Oh,
background.
sure. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a franchise junkie. I started out as a journalist. I was a photographer for a newspaper in New Orleans and writer. Was nominated for a Pulitzer twice, worked for the New York Times. Like I'm just, that kind of came from a storytelling background. And you would think that has nothing to do with capitalistic franchising, but it actually was a superpower skill. So I've been franchising since the late 90s. I've been a franchisor of 9 brands. I've owned 5 different franchises myself as a multi-unit owner and I've been a supplier. So I'm like all in on the franchise model. Love it. Like a big student of how to get it to work. And I think it's great to see people like use the franchise model to better themselves, to participate in the economy at their full market value. It's awesome.
Love it. And yeah, I love your background. I love that diverse range of things that you've done in franchising. You can definitely tell the difference when people really have touched so many different parts of it. So let's get into the FBR results because our topic for today is franchisee satisfaction. It sounds like you've got some
Yeah.
pretty happy franchisees. So I'm curious, tell us a little bit about it and what do you think is really driving that under the hood? Like, why are your scores the way they are?
Yeah. And our dryer vent superheroes brand, which has about almost 60 locations today, has about 35, 40 owners or so. It's a 2, 3 year old brand. It's not, still an emerging level brand. They wore us down on getting into the survey, and I've taken their surveys a lot. I think they're really valuable things to do. But when you're a new franchisor and you have all your franchisees who are in the first year, or just out of the first year, or just getting started, it's a little scary to do an anonymous survey about like how's leadership, how's the culture, how's the training, how's the marketing. It's all the stuff that you feel like you're going to get bricks thrown at you. So it's a little cringy. We were all kind of nervous about it. So we sent it out and we explained what it was. And we said, we want you to be honest. And obviously, if you're super unhappy, like we want to know that. Like, don't vent on the survey, but like let
Yeah,
us know. But
because that's not going to help, right? Tell us directly.
doesn't really help. Yeah, but we didn't tell them like say nice things. It's not, it's really we want you to be honest because this is what other people might use to do research on the brand. It's public, those things. And we were really excited. I think we're at 78 or 79, whatever. It's a very high score compared. It's way above home services and maybe like getting closer to their top 50 benchmark, which is really a surprise for us. They were kind of surprised. We were surprised. And what people said was the most interesting is they ranked training and support, coaching, marketing, leadership, culture all really high. And then they were, like to one point that, like I feel like there's a lot of structure in this franchise system. Like I know kind of everybody's kind of, it's a very predictable model. Like the comments would be like, this brand, they've been there. Even if I didn't understand all the technical stuff in training, they stood with me long enough to do it. And I think what's important about that brand for us is that was our first brand that we implemented the whole kind of toolbox approach and develop, we certified all of our coaches and support staff. Anybody who touches a franchisee in that system has been through the certification class with you guys. And that is an enormous game changer because they're not franchise sympathizers. They're empathetic. They have really good soft skills. They use data. They use AI. They use all the tools to help kind of grow. And my revenue on that brand is super consistent. Like we're, more or less at capacity on trucks as we get into that brand and the franchisees could see it. So for me, I think one of the challenges you have when you start franchise brands is the just sheer investment in people, training, expertise, and that you have to build. And my job, and I've learned this from you, my job as a franchise founder leader, it's really to develop the team of talent. Like I'm not in the middle of day-to-day stuff with franchisees. I want people who are trustworthy and skilled to do that. been pretty amazing.
Awesome. So yeah, okay, a few things in there, and but a lot to do with getting the coaching right. It sounds like, which is always music to my ears to hear that.
Yeah.
Whether you're using our services or just doing it right on your own, that's awesome. And I'm going to go back to when maybe it wasn't the first time we met, but one of our first deeper conversations we had where we were talking about your challenges of, you're trying to initially you're putting this team together and you had some great people on the team, but you're struggling to get that operations coaching kind of department, I guess, will
Yeah.
if it will,
Yeah,
right.
we, I did what a lot of young franchisors think, and I'm a big fan of. I always have a business coach. I always pull in outside expertise. Franchising is a complicated business to learn, and even if you know it and have been a franchisee or franchisor like me, it's still like the more sets of experienced eyes, the better you can be executing. And I had homegrown talent. I thought, well, I'll hire a COO from another company, and I did, and smart guy, big bag of tricks, like knew what he was talking about, like a lot of technically good stuff, but horrible culture fit, just
Yeah.
uncoachable, difficult, like a lot of tension internally in the team, and that spread to franchisees. And just, I don't know that he was poorly intentioned. I don't think that he intended to have the outcome he had, but it was, I guess I intended to use you guys before I hired him, and it was a coin cost at the time,
Yeah.
and I was pretty regretful about that decision. It put us back a year. We had to kind of undo a lot of the stuff to get it kind of straightened out. But and it was really helpful for the coaches to understand like this is kind of like some of the ideas were good that he had, but you have to be really careful about your culture, like just being so intentional about your culture because you're only as good as your weakest link. And when a franchisee deals with a business coach and they're fearful of marketing or they're fearful of hiring or they don't have leadership skills or, they just, they've never run a business and the idea that you'd spend $8,000 on anything, much less marketing, is terrifying to them. They're like, I had a franchisee call me and say, "Well, I only have 15,000 in my business account." I was like, "Well, you're rich." It's like, what's wrong? I don't problem. Like, what are we talking about? Because like I have 37 in mine.
Yeah.
It's just a perception change. So having franchise coaches that felt enabled to have conversations and getting them out of a consulting, like solving problems. Like, here's how you fix that into that. Well, like, what's your plan for that? Like, if you don't spend that $8,000, what are you going to do? Like, walk me through your plan. You're the boss, so your business. And so, like, certifying people and getting them coached up and just the sheer investment that you have to make in a franchise company to build the talent. That's how you really get through. Anybody can get to 10 or 20 units. To get to 50 or 100 or 200, you have to really have a machine that's designed to produce this repetitive, kind of predictable outcome where a below average owner, if you have one, can get above average results using systems and structure, and it's super consistent. And it doesn't burn the coaches out because God bless, like you, a franchise coach is a hard job if it's not structured right. It's a joyful job because you're helping people and you have this enthusiasm and servant attitude, but they'll just wear you out if you let them. And so like that's some of that's counterintuitive. And even being in franchising as long as I have, getting coaching from a whole team on how to avoid the common pitfalls. Some of the stuff that they've had to do is what I would say counterintuitive. It doesn't feel right. You go, that can't be the right way to do it, but it is, and it works. And it's like you can't do one-on-one meetings. Stop with the one-on-one meetings. Do peer meetings, and you get them in a peer meeting, and then all of a sudden the high performers start coaching the low performers and solve your relationship problems, and the coach is just sitting drinking a diet coke in the corner, going, "Isn't this awesome?" This is pretty cool.
It's a
Yeah.
better one.
It's a
Yeah.
way better life, way better life. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, just highlighting. I guess here's a key takeaway for people that you went through that I want people to get is that people often think that, especially emerging like under 100 units or under 50, is that I've got to go find somebody that has experience doing this, and that's the solution that will fix everything. And you think they're going to be a fit. Often, I find those people. It's common we find that those people come in with a lot of their own way of wanting to do things, and then there's this clashing that happens, because they're not ready to kind of step back and go, well, how are you doing things right now and how can I work within that? It's like I'm coming in with the expertise. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's all bad, and I'm gonna make it right, and like everything you had is
Yeah.
junk.
Yeah,
Like
like
that.
what
Yes.
about
Yeah.
What about instead finding the person with the right culture fit, right DNA for that role? And then like you're doing, you're big on coaching people in all ways, right? Like you're big
Yeah.
on raising them up, which I love.
Yeah. I think of a franchise as a professional development path in life, right?
Yeah,
Like it's 3 years of, it's like getting a big MBA and you're going to learn how to run a business, manage a business, have leadership skills, understand marketing. You should be able to run any kind of business you want after that if you're open to working in a team. And it's a very social version of it. But yeah, I think it's hard. I think the big difference for us is, and I think the reason people think they have to hire someone is they just don't know. And
yeah,
so they'll go find somebody that looks good on paper and then they just have no idea. But I mean, just in my experience in franchising, that's a 75% fail rate on those hires. They
yeah.
mostly fail.
That's
Like
what
it's
we see.
rarely successful. And so, what I like about what we've done with you guys and what we've done in all of our brands is you guys helped us build the infrastructure where we could hire somebody with the raw talent, enthusiastic, sense of urgency, thick skin, data analysis, marketing background, just empathetic, like the soft skills, the right type of person with the right core skill set. And then they could they basically they think of themselves as project managers. It's kind of interesting. I've heard that language internally where they're just project managers and the franchisee is a project and each group of franchisees is a project and they're using your toolbox to help kind of drive the needle and get them through the curve to mastery and self-sufficiency. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a super well thought out way. It's way better than, even in the time I've been in the business, it's better than what I knew how to do. And I've been around a lot of franchises. So I think, as much as the people, it's, you can grow your own talent. You can pick people who are culture forward for you that fit, and then you can fill the gaps as long as they have the base skills with the toolbox system that you guys coach on. I mean, it's nice for us because after we get them certified, we put them in peer groups. You guys even review our peer group calls because we record them and give us feedback. This was really awesome. This not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we share that with everybody on the team, so it's super transparent. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you had a bad call, like everybody else hears it. We don't judge on it. It's one of those no judgmental things. But what a crazy good learning way. Like everybody's learning kind of as a group at the same time. So
I love that. It's actually really fun for me to hear how you've taken what you've learned from us and our team and what you've done with it. We find that different franchisors, like different or franchisors do different things with the way they
sure,
implement
yeah,
based on it would be based on what skill set is already in your system, based on what size of brand or what's already been happening. There's all these things and you're putting it in, you're going, okay, let's take this and use it. So it's been so cool to see what you guys have done with it. And another thing I want to touch on is I hear you talk a lot about Gen Z
yeah,
and right. And from a
yeah,
franchisee perspective, but also on your team, right? You've got a lot of young people on your team. And I think again, it goes back to they didn't necessarily, well, some of them or are franchisees. So they're now on the internal leadership or home office,
right.
right? So they understand that's a big, it helps a lot with credibility, right? If they've been a
Okay.
franchisee, here they are. But talk a little bit about Gen Z. Like, why do you prefer Gen Z, or are you just trying to balance? What is it that
Well,
draws you?
to start with some stats. And I talk about this a lot. I think probably 30% of our owners are Gen Z, and I intentionally try to recruit Gen Z under
Mhm,
this idea that that generation is wired a little different. They're a highly entrepreneurial group, and that's the jobs are for losers group.
mhm,
Getting a job is plan B, and getting running a business and having a real hustle is what they're really after. And it's the majority of that generation. It's not a minority, it's a very large group of people. And because we call them the YouTube generation, meaning that they've always had access to explanatory information at their fingertips, like they're very easy to coach. And so older generations will knock them as a group, but 30% of mine are Gen Z, but 60% of my top performers are Gen Z. Like they make up a oversized amount of it. And, you could say like it's, well, I tell them like, you're not going to remember what you did in your 20s when you're my age. You're not going to remember. Like, who cares? You could fail 7 times, sleep on mom's couch and still do well. And they
yes,
kind of buy into that Gary V, like fail. If you're not failing, you're not learning kind of thing. But we don't fail. That's not the point, is it, to fail? But it's just the point is you're just not afraid of failing. And that's such a
yes,
huge psychology thing because they don't have to deal with a lot of the fear baggage that somebody who's 45 is struggling with because they got all this infrastructure they have to pay for. people depending on.
family and all these
Yeah,
other.
and so I love them. I joke around that I identify as a Gen Z. My kids don't think it's funny, but it's like
Oh,
it is what it is. Like I think like any entrepreneur can do well in a system. I think using the system that we have worked with you guys to build, which is your kind of core system, like we're not making a ton of tweaks to it. I think you can actually develop and grow your own talent. Meaning you can start at a lower comp level, younger person, maybe with out of college and a little bit entrepreneurial, or maybe like he's 25 or 27, and they'll stay with you long. Like you're not going to have people job hunting, and that is a real problem in our industry where people like, I think when I interview people and they're like, well, my last job was a toxic environment and I didn't have whatever, I'm like, okay, next, let's
yeah.
move on to the next person. Like you want people who have all those harness that enthusiasm for the work and like they want to do good, they want to help people, and they're real aggressive. And so you can do it with the right framework. Like it's hard for somebody that age to break into this industry, but they have way more energy and they have way better technology skills. They're much more savvy on social media and marketing. Like some of the things that really hinder older coaches in our industry, they have in spades. So, like, I would tell you that I'm not going to mix. I have older people, they're not all the same age, but our franchisees are more likely to be in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, like most of them are. We have some older folks, but the service brand is a lot of hustle, so it's much better for you. Yeah, but I think that's really important. But I couldn't do that without the structure, though. Like that's for
Hmm.
me, that's the part. They didn't have the skills or the infrastructure, and you can't do everything in your business if you're a leader. You can't. You have to have people that can help you build the system. And like I can sell franchises and work on marketing and develop the models, or I could spend time developing talent and coaching franchisees. I'd never get off the coaching calls if I did that. We wouldn't grow. So I think it's a
Hmm.
priority of how you spend your time as a leader.
Yeah, it's funny. I said to you before we started, let's be careful we don't promote AC Inc. too much, or people will think I paid you
Yeah.
to say this. But I will
Well,
say you're coming back a lot to the framework and the toolbox that we provided that provided the structure, I guess, that everybody's singing from the same song sheet, right? And so I guess that's
right.
what one of the things that's really helped with the franchisee satisfactions. What I'm
Well,
hearing.
yeah, and it's coaching that's developing the people. Like, so it's nice for me to develop them. It's nice when they hear the same message from somebody with a lot more skill. I mean, and you and I have talked about this in franchising. In my time in franchising, the operations, lack of operational structure has been the weak underbelly of most systems. More people fail in franchising because they lack these systems that we built with you guys. And
Mhm.
it's the hardest part to build. Like it's hard. Like anybody can sell a franchise, anybody can trademark something, get an FTD, and like, but actually supporting franchisees and doing it from the right place in your heart, your mind, and like trying to think out for them and hold them accountable and have fierce conversations, but still be kind and loving and caring is a lot harder to do. I don't know, to my knowledge, you're the only one in franchising that's developed that kind of a framework. Like I think I would tell you that you could probably put the framework we use in any franchise system. Like literally you could drop it in and follow not just the tools, like the tools are nice by themselves. Anybody can build a tool set. It's
Mhm.
the training, the slowing down with the education on the people and getting them certified, and then the continuing coaching individually on how to master their skills as a coach.
Mhm.
Like that's, I mean, like, and I think all of it together cost me less than a single full-time employee. Like I don't know. It's like it's kind of in the stupid category of obvious ROI, like it for
Like it
me.
not no brainer
But
kind
you
of
don't
thing.
know until you see it. But I mean, like I'm pretty thrilled with it. It's helped us a tremendous amount.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And really just where this all comes from is, as you know, and I can relate to your daughters that are in the business, and I was there, right? I was
Yeah.
the 25-year-old. Well, no, I was at the time I was 20, and I was trying to get these older male franchisees that had invested $400,000 in their business to listen to me, and I knew the business inside out, right? I grew up in the business. I hadn't been a franchisee yet, but I just was there all along, and I was at the kitchen table when my parents were talking about all the challenges and growing things. And so I had the credibility on that side, but then whenever I got pushback, on anything. It was like, how do I get them to listen to me? And so that is where this all stemmed from, is being able to get, whether they're younger or they haven't been a franchisee, or whatever it is that's making the franchisees think that they don't have credibility. That's what the certification program is supposed to help take care of, and it sounds like it's working. And so, are your franchisees? Do you have any franchisees that are resistant to the younger field team members that think, "Was how can you help
Yeah, I mean, every now and then you'll get somebody who's much older, but I think that comes into play when there's a trust issue. Like it's a
me?"
trust issue.
Yeah,
So in a group setting, if you're using a framework where the data is central and we're saying,
yeah,
here's the scorecard. Like, okay,
yeah,
franchise one did this, franchise two did this, and we're looking at their numbers and wow, this is really good. We have like a delta of like where they should be and who's over and under. And if you're using that kind of data and then you're answering their problems and they get real value out of it, you don't have that issue as much.
hmm,
So I mean, you need if it's just somebody who's winging it and they're jumping on a call and there's no prep and there's no structure, there's no agenda, like you can get pretty quickly. And so and so just doesn't know what they're doing. He or
yeah,
she is too young and they never run a business, and then all of a sudden they shut down. So you got to be really wary of that in a coaching environment. I find that with the structure, like we're training them to pull data, so they're having database conversations. Like they're saying
that
my
is
market's different and the marketing doesn't work. And we'll say, okay, well, look, here's the top 10. Here's what they spend. Here's their ROI. Here you are, way down here. And
it
so
doesn't
you tell
lie.
me, like, what's like, let's look at it together. Like, what do you see? Like, and that, which is something we learned, just using data to say, like, let's have a database conversation. Let's make it a business conversation, not a personal conversation. And
Mm,
my goal is to help you like break through. But if you keep doing what you're doing, what's going to happen? If you do this again next month, it's an implication question. What's that going to look like? Like, or how long can you stay at this low level before you kind of realize you either have
remember
to
that.
spend more, hire more people, do something different? I think if any coach can deliver that message with that infrastructure and a data set, they're going to be effective, because what you're really doing is you're getting them out of this conversation with the coach and you're getting them into a conversation with them and their data, and they're talking to themselves. Like they're
Mhm.
looking at the mirror.
Yeah.
And when that happens, like a magical thing happens in a franchise support relationship. And if it's in a group, it's even better. This is why I love group coaching, because then, like, it's one thing to pound down on a younger franchise support and just kind of undercut them and throw them under the bus. It's another to say stupid and mean stuff in front of your peers.
Hmm.
Stick up for that person because they're trying really hard to add value, and you have to be sincere. But I don't know. That's been my experience with it.
Yeah. I love one thing that you mentioned earlier, and you're touching on here again, is the consulting versus coaching, right?
Oh yeah,
We and so many brands, and this is just the traditional way of doing it. So I'm not blaming the brands. It's just somebody had to come along and realize that this wasn't working. So we did. But
yeah.
the consulting approach is the telling, like you said earlier, and implied here. The coaching is, like you said, helping them look in the mirror and and realizing what needs to change. And so, what are you seeing when it comes to the coaching? Like, why do you think that coaching approach is so much more effective than just telling them?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll tell you that. But Brian Terrell's our VP of Operations on Up Closets, our closet brand, and so he deals with all the manufacturers, installations, all the technical side of installing closets, ordering closets. He's got a mountain of information that he's got at his fingertips. And he took the certification class. And it's funny, about the third or so class, fourth class in, you can almost see this huge light bulb go off with every single person I've had. And they come out and they start explaining to me the difference in coaching and consulting. Like it never occurred to them that, oh, people are asking me how to install drawer slides on a box. And I've answered that question 27 times this week, and I answer it. I go, and I'm frustrated because I don't understand why they can't go look up that it's on our internet. You can search. It's very easy to find. There's videos, there's all kind of stuff. But they're coming to him, and I realize that I'm enabling bad behavior as a coach, and so it's taken all my time to answer the same 15 questions over and over and over, and I can't get to the good stuff. So I feel like I'm being taken advantage of and burned out. And Stephanie, his class, was his certification teacher, said, you'll enable better behavior if you teach them to think for themselves. So you have to kind of challenge them. Because, well, where would you look for that? Like where would you look for it? Have you look for it? And or in the case of like a manufacturer problem, instead of just answering their question for them, like send them to the vendor or the manufacturer, like make them go solve the problem on their own. And like like he's just a different level of person after he went through that class. Same with every coach we sit through. I think they realize that, you got to teach them to be self-sufficient,
Hmm.
and you have to, like, franchisees who are relying on you enable bad behavior themselves. Like they become, almost like privileged, or like they expect you to do everything for them. And it's not my business. You pay us a royalty. That's how we make our living. It's
Yeah,
not, you have 95, 96% of the revenue for this business. It's your business, and you're responsible for running it. And so I think in some ways I think we were over supporting people and coddling
yep.
them a little bit, and that was a hard
Handholding,
lesson
yeah.
to learn. But yeah, the coaching stuff unlocks like a whole nother level of performance, and then people start taking off, and you do less. It's actually less work, but it's behavior based questions, and you have to really think about it. And so it's very hard to train people to do that. I'll say, like, for us, like, after going through the certification and learning how to use the tools, it's the, like, having your guys look at our review our coaching sessions, which we record with Read AI, and send in a super detailed feedback, which is an amazing, worth every penny, because you start to see the patterns over and over and over, and then they talk about it. Oh yeah, I'm going to try this on the next call, and they have this whole strategy around how they're positioning themselves to be in the coaching end of the universe. So, Brecken or Page or whoever doesn't get onto them for not, okay, better than that. But
Yeah,
it's like, you have to have that in a franchise system. Who's onboarding and training those people? And I can tell you, in most systems, the franchise business coach is just thrown to the wolves
totally.
in the
Just
deep end, and nobody cares. And they feel like nobody cares. And it's why there's so much turnover in that position.
yeah,
It's
and it's not a high paid position, and but yet we're expecting them to really be able to move the needle. It's really the most important job, the toughest job, and like
yeah,
as you said earlier, but also a lot, it can be very rewarding when you're successful at it, but otherwise it's not. And yeah, we see that all the time where people just, I mean, I do think it's great if you groom someone up from in your flagship location, or your own corporate company owned location, and groom them up to be a coach, like you said earlier, though, if they have the right DNA to start. And
yeah. It's like, I think, and this is my experience in franchise, like, it's very hard to untrain somebody who's set in their ways,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is the culture problem I've had.
yeah.
It's three times the work or four times the work. And again, the failure rate's much higher when you do that. So finding somebody who's got the raw skills but doesn't have any kind of, maybe they were
How about
project
it?
manager, or they were working in some kind of CSM role, or they were in some other related industry and getting it, or they were marketing, worked at an agency even. The marketing people in our systems do much better than the people who aren't. But they're, just, they can learn it a little quicker. Like,
Mm,
but again, it's in raw skills. And even when I get ready to hire people, like, I run them by Brecken, the guy that I coach with. I was like, here's some resumes. Here's what I think. Like, what do you think? Give me a feedback on it. And that's been really helpful. The best coach we have came from that process. And it
mhm.
was like a little bit of an outlier. Somebody with zero franchise experience, and she's like an amazing coach. And, it's Brecken was like, I like this one, and here's why I like them, and here's how that might fit into your, just having another set of eyes help you build a sustainable, profitable operations infrastructure that will kind of make franchisees happy. You can't make everybody happy. You're always going to have some level of churn in a franchise system, but, to be able to do it and get to a level in year three where you're at the top of the FBR results is pretty awesome. Like,
It
it's like,
is.
I
It
mean,
is.
I know how hard that is. I've done it myself a bunch, and it's not always easy to pull off. Like, it's a lot
Mhm.
of work.
Well, I think, what I see with people like you that have been around in franchising in different areas, in different ways, is that you've seen the carnage, or the result
Yeah.
of right, and you're like, I don't want that to happen. So versus the new people that are building a franchise and they've never been a franchisor, they're the ones selling franchises and leaving franchisees behind, and not focusing on what really matters. So you can see the difference, which I think is awesome. And I'm going to start to wrap us up here, but I'm going to ask you
Sure.
a question, about, we have the Go Be Awesome challenge, of
Yeah.
course, right? And so what I like to do is have our guests, you in this case, of course, give a challenge to people that are listening this week, within the next week from whenever they hear this. What's one step that they could go take, or should go take, something that you didn't do and then you did do and realized, and it really helped you with growth. So what's that one action step that you think would?
Yeah, I think the one action step that I would recommend and the challenge I would make is learn how to use an open mic. Like if you don't know what your relationship is with your franchisees and you can be in fantasy land and think it's awesome, I guarantee it's not. Like it's franchising's hard and there's a lot of psychology. I recommend if you want to grow your system, like get your franchisees together and have an open mic and say, I want to hear the downside. I don't want to hear the rosy stuff. I want you to tell me like where you think we're weak as a system, where you feel like your needs aren't met, and throw bricks at me. Like in
Yeah.
a non-judgmental way, like I want to have a business conversation, but let's do an open mic. Let's go around there and fly them in, do a focus group, whatever it is, and summarize it and take it to heart. Like, so
Mhm.
if we're going to improve, we're going to have to do A, B, and C, and involve them in the decision process on the operation system that you build. We've done that, and it's it's funny. You think you're going to get this pounded. You'll have one or two kind of mean comments, and then it fizzles out in 5 or 10 minutes, and then people get into like, how do we grow? How do we make more money? How do we make, it turns into the super productive thing. But I think people's fear of hearing the downside of feedback, which a lot of franchisees are terrified of, because you've sold somebody a franchise, you've spent all the money that you didn't make money on it anyway, because it cost a lot to recruit franchisees, and now you're in the upside down royalty side trying to get your business to royalty self-sufficiency. You're in that sprint, you can't afford to leave anybody, you can't make a mistake, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But have the fortitude to open the mic up and listen to the feedback and act on it. Like it's really that simple. Like just
Yeah.
act on it. Like do something different than you're doing and fix the problems and work aggressively on them. And I think you'll
I
be rewarded.
That's amazing, Thomas. I feel like that just confirms the growth trajectory you're on, because that is definitely something that was a big thing that my dad did um, at M&M Food Market growing over the years, which grew to almost 500 locations, and eventually
Yeah.
he had a very successful exit to private equity. So I think if you're saying that and he was saying that, there's a good chance there. And I
Yeah.
over and all kidding aside, you've just I love your boldness with the things you're trying and doing, and you're not getting, it doesn't feel like you're getting influenced by what other people in the industry are doing. You're doing what you think is right, and you're having good success, good franchisee satisfaction from it. So I really appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. We're big fans and we love franchising. I think if more people follow the structure that you're preaching, we would have much higher success rates in franchising and more people would be franchisees. Like we leave franchisees behind that we shouldn't leave behind because we skimp on the things that really matter.
Yeah, and it would just, yeah, it would help everybody. Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. To anyone listening, if you're walking away thinking, okay, I really need to look at how we're supporting franchisees, kind of the whole point. We're here to help. We also have our roundtables that are free, which Thomas comes to as well, where we have conversations about how to grow our brand, be stronger from the inside out. So until next time, go be awesome.
Emotionally.com